Welcome again, fellow explorers of our mind, to a journey of the paradox of the arrow. In this podcast, we will talk about one of the most famous paradox that philosophy and mathematics have a great influence on it. Today's chapter will be different from the ones we have already done. This one will be how both areas influence on a real life topic, indeed the paradox of the arrow. So fasten your seatbelts, open your mind, and get ready for an intellectual journey that transcends boundaries. Welcome to Infinite Equation, where every episode is a stepping stone toward a deeper understanding of our universe. To kick off this episode, I would like to first mention very quickly who was Zeno of Elea. This was the creator of the paradox of the arrow, we will now see, and it is known exclusively for propounding a number of ingenious paradoxes. Indeed, Zeno's paradoxes have had a lasting impact through the attempts, even from Aristotle down to the present day. And these are basically to respond to the problems they raise. So what is it, the paradox of the arrow, now that we know the creator of it? So in this paradox, arrow is shot, and at each moment in time, the arrow is in a specific position, and if in that moment is small enough, the arrow does not have any time to move, so it is at rest during that instant. Now, during the following periods of time, the arrow will also be at rest for the same reason. So the arrow is always at rest. So movement is impossible. However, this is what Zeno of Elea said. In this episode, we will see it from 2 points of view, from a mathematical perspective and a philosophical perspective. I hope you like, because it's a very interesting topic, which it has been discussed by the greatest philosophers and mathematicians of all the time. Okay, now that we already know what is more or less the paradox of the arrow, we could agree that this paradox is presented in a clever and challenging manner, that it involves both philosophical and mathematical aspects. In broad terms, the arrow of paradox addresses the question of how motion is possible at every given instant, at least what Zeno of Elea said, reasoning that at each instant the arrow is at rest. This paradox caused a lot of trouble between philosophers and mathematicians, because they both agree that this was impossible. Not that it was impossible to move, indeed that it was impossible not to move. The philosophical resolution of this paradox often involves the notion of the continuum and the idea that although motion can be divided into instants, these instants do not represent a complete stop. In other words, time and space are not composed of infinitesimal instants that completely halt motion, but form a continuum that allows for smooth movement. On the other hand, we have the mathematical perspective. In mathematical terms, the paradox of the arrow is connected with concepts such as the theory of limits and differential calculus. The mathematical description of the arrow's motion at each instant involves the use of limits and derivatives. The instantaneous velocity of the arrow at a particular point is described by the derivative of displacement with respect to time. While the arrow may be at rest at a specific instant, the instantaneous velocity at that instant may not be zero. The central idea here is that velocity can be zero at a given point, but still the arrow can be in motion due to infinitesimal changes in position as we move through successive instants. In summary, the paradox of the arrow highlights a fascinating intersection and harmony between philosophy and mathematics. And this paradox reflects on the nature of motion and our perception of time. The resolution of this paradox has contributed to the development of the mathematical theory of calculus and has enriched our understanding on fundamental concepts in the philosophy of physics and metaphysics. I hope you like this episode. I know it's different from the ones we have already done, but I hope you like and enjoyed this trip with Zeno Velea. It will be not the last paradox we will see in this podcast. And I hope you enjoyed and see you next time. Goodbye.